Okay, welcome back to Module 3, Safe Handling Procedures. In this module, we'll be talking about handling pesticides safely while buying, transporting, storing, mixing, applying, and cleaning up. Select suitable PPE as required. Care for and store protective clothing and equipment in a safe manner. Dispose of pesticide containers as regulated and understand the importance of triple rinsing. Deal appropriately with surplus spray or pesticide concentrates. So here's some images from a different time, obviously. DDT is good for me. You just look at the spray. DDT worked great, but it didn't break down, and that's one of the reasons it's been taken off the market. But you can see that people were sprayed. Definitely times have changed, no doubt. Personal protective equipment, otherwise known as PPE for short. PPE is required to handle almost any agricultural commercial pesticide. The instructions on the label are the minimum requirements. So they're not suggestions. What the label says is what you're required to do. Okay, protective clothing and equipment. Pesticides with greater toxicity require more protective equipment. Pesticides which are solutions, emulsifiable concentrates, or powders are more likely to be absorbed through the skin or be inhaled and therefore require more PPE. Minimum protection. So this is the minimum level of protection required for working with dilute, less toxic or granular pesticides, where there is direct contact with the pesticide or handling of concentrate. You might want to add, or you will need to add extra protection. Table 1 on page 3 in module 3 kind of gives you a guideline. Like this fella here, he's, the way he's dressed is kind of your minimum protection. So here's an idea of what minimum protection might look like. Obviously, you might not need the respirator in place, but you have boots and gloves and coveralls and a hat. Eye protection would most likely be required. However, the respirator may not be required depending on what it is you're using. When choosing a hat, you're going to consider the following. It needs to protect your hair, your ears, scalp from spray dust or powders. Must be wide brimmed and washable. Must not have a leather inner band. Now, they show a brimmed hard hat, and it's not that the hat is necessarily protecting your head from falling objects. It's hard, and it's something you can easily clean, okay, and wash off. So that, wearing a cap or, something made out of, material or cloth would be more likely to absorb chemical, whereas a hard hat, plastic, would not. Coveralls, when choosing your coveralls, you're going to consider the following. Choose a heavy material with a tight weave. Cloth coveralls breathe better, but they would need to be washed daily. Wear your coveralls closed at the neck, wrists, and ankles over a long sleeve shirt and pants. And you'll want to wear the coveralls over your boots, not tucked inside, because if you have a spill and your pants are tucked in your boots, well, then whatever you've spilled will go directly into your boot. Disposable coveralls. They're made from a non-woven material, sometimes breathable, and are coated with a moisture repellent finish. Make sure they are recommended for intended pesticides. There's different kinds of disposable coveralls you can get, so you need to make sure what you're getting is good enough for what it is you're going to be using. Don't launder them. You'll dispose of them in approved landfill, and do not burn them. Okay, do not burn disposable coveralls. Boots, unlined neoprene boots, or a high rubber boot. You'll wear your pants over top of the boots, like I've said, to prevent accidental spills into your boot. Extra protection, so you can flip the page in your book, and it'll show an example of someone wearing extra protection: goggles, face shield, earplugs, respirator, coveralls, waterproof apron. So here's an example of, someone wearing the full gear. And really the times you're going to wear, something like this would most likely be during mixing and loading. Once you're loaded and out, you may not be required to wear this much protection. So your goggles or face shield must be snug fitting, clean, chemically resistant, and approved for pesticide use. Wear goggles or a face shield when handling concentrated pesticides and when recommended on the label. Do not wear contact lenses. Face shields may not provide enough protection when spraying mists or using volatile pesticides, or of generally spraying in southern Alberta with the wind. Earplugs. Use disposable earplugs to protect from sprays or dust that may contaminate head, and change them after each use. Disposable earplugs are a great way to clean your ears out too. Respirator considerations. So in page 5, there's a list of the types of respirators. So you want to make sure you buy the recommended one for pesticides, and that fits comfortably. Full face respirator also provides eye protection. So here's some examples. This here would be a common respirator, same as this one. This is actually the same style that I would use when I was spraying trees. This style here is closer to what is required for using aluminum phosphine, but these cartridges would need to be rated for the use of phosphine. The cartridges that we have are actually rated for phosphine, ammonia, and chlorine, and they go with a full face mask, and it's one cartridge in the middle. Or you'd be required to use it. This is an SCBA. Okay, so you have, it contains its own air. So if you're going into a structure that you'll be fumigating from the inside, this is the recommended respirator that you need to wear. Or you might be able to get away with something like this if you're in and out fairly quickly. These are not respirators. These are dust masks. They will not protect you necessarily from vapors or mists, but merely from dust and particles. So you'll adjust for an airtight fit over nose and mouth. Test for an air seal. So once you have that respirator on, you can place your palms over the cartridges and inhale slightly. If the face mask collapses inward, then you know you have a good seal. Beards and mustaches, of course, I would probably not have the best protection due to my beard. So you may need to trim your beard to fit. And of course, I've got this in bold. When fumigating, a self-contained breathing respirator is recommended. So that was this here. This is what the label recommends, okay? Self-contained breathing apparatus. However, there are cartridges and masks available that can be used if you're fumigating from outside of the bin, or if you're going to be in for short period of time. You can get away with this style. Replace cartridges or disposable respirator when breathing becomes difficult, plugging, or at the first detection of a chemical odor. Have spare cartridges handy. A dust mask, like I said, it's not a respirator and will only provide partial protection from granular or powdered formulations during handling. Coveralls, we kind of talked about them already. Some coveralls can be coated to provide high repellency, but they're not breathable. Impermeable rainwear is excellent for liquid repellency, but is non-breathable. This is very warm and could cause heat exhaustion. Apron. An apron provides protection to the abdomen and genital area. If you remember back, that abdominal genitalia area is has the highest absorbency rate. So that would be a reason to wear an apron while mixing and loading. Wear a waterproof apron for added protection when handling all concentrated pesticides. What not to wear? Natural rubber or plastic gloves. So nitrile is what's recommended. Leather belt or wristwatch band, contact lenses, baseball cap, leather or cloth gloves, leather shoes or boots, leather cell phone holes, etc. These are things you should not wear while applying pesticides. When buying pesticides, you're going to consider some of these questions. Is the product registered for my planned use? Do you have proper application equipment and PPE? Can the product be used safely under the conditions on your farm? Is the product compatible with your IPM program? IPM stands for Integrated Pest Management, and we will be talking about that more in Module 5. Is there a product available that is less toxic or less persistent or more target specific? And how much pesticide will you need? So you might need to do a little research on, what it is you're wanting to control and what type of pesticide would be the best one for your situation. Transporting. So under the Dangerous Goods Act, you must do the following. Ensure containers are securely tied down, are not punctured, broken, or upset during transport. Prevent contamination. Never transport with food, feed, fertilizer, or any other household goods. Don't transport in a truck with a wooden bed or box liner. Use a metal or plastic storage containers, and never leave pesticides unattended. Ultimately, you are responsible for accidental poisonings. If you're transporting dangerous goods more than 100 kilometers in a farm vehicle, you must obtain the proper documentation, training, and attach the appropriate TDG placard to the vehicle. Check and secure containers before you move them. Provide proper ventilation. Never transport in truck cab or in the car. Do not let others ride with the chemical. Protect paper and cardboard containers from rain. Carry PPE and spill cleanup equipment in the vehicle, and transport containers in a secondary containment to catch any spills or leaks. Storing pesticides. So you'll want to store these in a special shed or room or locker or cupboard, which meet these requirements. So it needs to be located away from wells, ditches, or bodies of water. Avoid coarse textured soil or areas that may flood. The minimum distance from a well is 90 meters, and the minimum distance from surface water is 30 meters. A secure building that can be locked when unattended, well ventilated to the outside with appropriate vents or exhaust fans, not adjacent to an area occupied by people, livestock, or an area where food is stored or processed. Warning signs on the entrance or cabinet door, used exclusively for storing pesticides. Shelving made from metal or other non-porous material that can be easily cleaned, and no floor drains. Pesticides do present special dangers to livestock and children. So storage should be constructed to resist fire and spills. Storage facility must be secure and sturdy enough to resist damage by livestock or people attempting to break in. Mixing pesticides. So before mixing, you're going to follow the label instructions, of course, and you're going to recheck your calculations. So it's important to know your math, calculate, how much you're going to need, and then recalculate it, double check it. It's easy to make a mistake, and then you could end up with either too much or not enough. Okay. Of course, always protect yourself as per the label instruction. Make sure you have the right equipment, have clean water, first aid kit, spill kit nearby and ready. Use kitty litter, sawdust, or soil to soak up any spills. Selecting the mixing site. Prepare spray solutions outside and at least 30 meters away from dugouts, streams, wells, irrigation canals, and drainage ditches. Choose an area that will not contaminate a water supply. The best place, I have this in bold, the best place is in the field being sprayed, if you have that ability. And then keep other people, livestock, and pets away. If you're drawing water directly from a body of water into the sprayer, a backflow prevention device must be installed in the system to prevent pesticide contaminated water from flowing back into the water body should the pump stop functioning. Okay, and if you're top filling, this I have in bold, you have to know this. If you're top filling, an air gap must be left between the filler pipe and the spray tank to prevent pesticide from siphoning back into the water supply. Okay, so here's an example of the air gap. Okay. So there's an air gap here. So the water is coming out of here, up the hose and down into the truck. And that's the air gap. Okay. Pouring pesticides. So hold container below eye level to reduce the chance of splashing in your eyes or face. Don't tear open bags. Always cut open bags to reduce puffing up of dust. Always measure accurately. Don't guess. Mix only amount you plan to use immediately. Label all mixing tools and equipment for pesticide use only. So don't go in and grab your wife's mixing containers or any of the stuff out of the kitchen. Not only do you put everyone at risk doing that, but you'll probably get in trouble from your wife. So have your own tools, your own mixing equipment, all separate. So if when you're adding pesticide to your sprayer, this is the order that is the best way to mix your chemical. So you'll start off by filling the sprayer about half full of water. If the chemical you're using requires agitation, this would be the time to turn on your agitation. You'll measure out, add your chemical, your pesticide, and then you'll add the remainder of your water. That is the ideal way to mix. Okay. Disposal. Pesticide disposal. Containers must be triple rinsed and punctured before being disposed of. Okay, so remember back in Module 1, we talked about local regulations. So the County of Warner has 2 sites, Craddock beside Sunshine Seed Cleaning Plant, and then Highway 501 East beside Border Seed Cleaning Plant. These sites are where you can dispose of your jugs and small containers. They do not accept barrels or totes. Those need to be returned back to the manufacturer. If you have surplus spray mix, let's say you've mixed too much, you can handle it in these ways. So you can spray it on compatible cropland. I've got this in bold. You can, if you've stayed within the maximum application rate, you may be able to just add it to the area you've already sprayed, as long as you're within that maximum rate. So respray treated area if able to stay within the maximum application rate. Okay, a way of dealing with surplus spray mixture. Stored in appropriate labeled containers for later use. That's key. So if you're going to put it into a container, you must label it, put it back into an original container to use it for later. As a last resort, call Alberta Special Waste Management Association. They do have chemical roundups every few years where if you have old chemical sitting around that you haven't used in years and years, we usually post the times and the pickups of where you can drop that off. And I usually do it once every couple of years. Surplus concentrate. So best is to buy enough for the one spray season, take accurate inventory, record the purchase date, and store properly for longer shelf life. Handling soiled clothing. So you'll remove the contaminated clothing outdoors. Use unlined nitrile or neoprene gloves to handle the soiled clothes. Shake out cuffs, pockets, and pockets outdoors. If you've used things like Weevil-Side before, the tablets or pellets can get, you can end up with them in your cuff or your coveralls if you're, fumigating inside a Quonset or in a glove. Discard any garments that are saturated with chemical concentrate. If you've spilled a jug of concentrate onto yourself, onto your coveralls, instead of trying to clean those, you're better off to dispose of them. So you'll put them in you can store it in a plastic disposable plastic bag and discard that at the landfill. And also discard your disposable coveralls in a plastic bag at a landfill as well. Washing soiled clothing. So use proper gloves. We've talked about the nitrile gloves. You may need to wash your coveralls on a daily basis. Recommended to wash them separately from your other clothing. You can pre-treat with stain remover or pre-rinse or pre-soak. Always use hot water and use the full level on your washing machine. A good strong detergent. Don't overcrowd the washer. Repeat the wash procedure and then clean the washer after use. So line dry. If it's summertime or it's warm enough, line dry to prevent contamination and increase chemical breakdown by sunlight. Now, I often tell people, and it's not always, it is the ideal, but not always possible. If you could have a separate washer in the shop for your work clothes or spray clothes, that would be ideal. And then you're not washing your work clothes in your machines in the house that you're using to wash your everyday clothes. So whatever's most practical to do. Of course, your PPE needs to be cleaned on a regular basis. You can use hot soapy water. You can wash the respirator. They come apart. You can take the cartridges off. There's little diaphragms in there that can come off, and you can clean all that. And then when it's clean, you should store that respirator into a sealed plastic bag that will preserve the life of your cartridges. And that is the end of module 3.